This is the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. A Whatcom County public health emergency is still in effect, and accordingly, we have two ways to participate in this virtual meeting. There is the conference dial-in and Zoom login, both available on our website. I'm going to start by closing the executive session and reconvening the public meeting with a roll call, starting with Commissioner Briscoe.
Here.
And Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Shepard is also here. All three commissioners are present. I'll make a second call for public comment. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. Carrie, if you please.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through N.
Okay, is there any comments or questions? Commissioner Briscoe?
No.
And Commissioner Bell?
None.
I had two for items H and G. For the first, for that item H, with the cleanup at the Cornwall dump, could you just refresh my memory on a rough timeline for when that we hope to move out of engineering and design and into the next step, and how's our MOTCA funding looking for being able to move forward?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Brian Gower, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. For the Cornwall Avenue landfill, we were really pretty close to submitting for permit applications, and that's where we were at this stage, where we had this particular action item then actually was a reconfiguration of some design parameters that we are sharing the cost with the city. And so this redesign work will take the next few months, and we're hoping to get into permitting applications in late mid-fall kind of time frame. Then the permitting process there, of course, takes what it does, and it's a fairly complicated site. And then so I anticipate that we'll have 6 months or so of permit discussions with the Army Corps and the other permitting agencies, and then we'll really see where we're at. In this site, also, you got to keep in mind that the adjacent cleanup site that's managed by the city is the R.G. Haley site, and they're a few steps behind us, but they need to be constructed together. So likely need to be constructed together. So there's a little bit of catch up for that to do. We're in pretty good shape on these sites with MOTCA funding, with the existing grants that we have. I think we'll need a little bit more funding, which we projected to the Department of Ecology before we get to construction. But we're definitely funded all the way through design and have a portion of our construction funding in place as well.
Okay, great. So is the Archie Haley the ones with the white covered mounds, or are those the Cornwall landfill?
Yeah, that's the Cornwall landfill. So that's actually on top of the landfill itself. The other site, the R.G. Haley site, is a much smaller slice. That's kind of more of the entrance portion into that. It's kind of squeezed between the our maintenance facility and the shoreline and the railroad tracks. So it's a much smaller area.
Okay. Well, it's exciting to think about those giant white plastic mounds leaving our waterfront in the near future.
Yeah, we'd like to get those taken care of.
All right. So a related question with G. So with G, where the city has some new guidance on sea level rise going from around 20 inches to 50 inches of projected rise, which is impacting some of the planning at that site. And I'm wondering if this guidance is going to be applied to other waterfront projects and development opportunities like the waterfront district.
Yeah, and it already is being applied. So within the waterfront district specifically, that's actually that's now the new default. The way that the language is written in our agreements with the city for the waterfront district is that that during the evaluation of the project, the planning department will utilize for sea level rise assumptions the best available science, and then with added language of the most conservative of the best available science. So that's what really got us to this currently 50 inches. We're doing some other work to refine that as well, but that's our current approach approach, and that's what the projects in the waterfront are currently being designed. So we have a number of them that have already gone through that work, and we're well within, we're good on the sea level rise assumptions using the more conservative side.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you for that update. Appreciate it. Okay. Any further questions or comments?
I have a comment on the discussion there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Brian, the White Mound, that area, that's actually the city's responsibility. Is that correct? What's their area?
Well, it's a long sort of history, but it's currently the city and DNR own and manage that property. But under our agreements with the city and the Department of Ecology, we are the lead on the cleanup project. We used to have an ownership as some of that property, but we had a property transaction with the city where we gained property in the marine trades area, and then they took our ownership within the Cornwall area. But for the process of the cleanup, we retained responsibility because we've been working on it already. We're pretty far down the line, and we have an existing agreement with the city and DNR on how to manage that cleanup approach. So there's a lot of moving parts there, but from an ownership standpoint, it is the city and DNR only at this point.
Okay, how long have they owned the property, Ryan, roughly?
100% of the, I have to look back, I think it was probably the past 7 years or so is about when we had the transaction where they took the ownership.
Okay, that's what I thought about 7 years ago. All right, very good. I just wanted to point that out. The quarter really doesn't own the property. We are having. Thank you. No further questions, Commissioner Chairman.
Okay. Thank you. Carrie, please.
A motion to approve consent agenda items A through N.
All right. Commissioner Briscoe
Yes.
and Commissioner Bell.
Yeah, just a clarification, Michael, you said you pulled 2 things and we only went through 1.
Oh, no, I asked a question for H and then G.
Oh, okay.
They're interrelated topics.
Then I have none. Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Bell is a yes, and Commissioner Shepard is a yes as well. Carries 3-0. Thank you very much. We do not have any action items today, but we do have 4 presentations, starting with our airport director on Allegiant Air Startup Service update. Sunil.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Sunil Harman, Director of Aviation. So the forced public health shutdown has cast a recessionary pall.
Uh-oh.
Yes, see, as long as mine's on.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Here, please proceed.
I can hear it fine.
So the primary reasons for that impact are that international borders have a great deal of uncertainty. They're closed. The high yield international demand has almost collapsed. There's very little by way of information as to when the airlines will be able to get back into a growth environment. The most optimistic projections are 2 or 3 years from now. In terms of U.S. carriers, they're currently operating with a seating capacity that is averaging 70% fewer seats than last year. So essentially a capacity of 30% seats. And even those seats are enplaning a level of passengers that are 82% fewer than last year. Now, Bellingham closely tracks the national average. Our seating capacity is down, with Allegiant coming back into service, is down to about 30%. But in the month of March, which was a half month, we had a 43% drop in enplanements. In the month of April, we had a 98%, virtually no service in April except for the daily 5 times a week departure with Horizon to Seattle. And then in May, we saw a 97% drop. So we were elated, of course, starting June 4th, when Allegiant Air came back. Allegiant has resumed service with essentially It's summer schedule with a lower frequency. So they are serving on a weekly basis Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Oakland, San Diego, Phoenix, Palm Springs, and Anchorage. And I can't tell you how good it feels to see the Airbus A319s on the apron. Both of them usually are standing at the airport on Tuesday, Wednesdays, where they only operate one flight, either to Los Angeles or Las Vegas. The rest of the week, with peak days of Friday and Monday, have been very encouraging. However, in terms of loads, other than an initial burst of what I would call pent-up demand, where we saw a peak of 90 passengers to Las Vegas on June 4th, and approximately 70 passengers to Las Vegas on that day, passenger demand has tapered off to an average of 50 passengers per flight. This average would be about 80 per flight were it not for the continued closure of the Canada border, which has now, since last week, been extended through July 21. There's potentially talk of extending that closure further. We're not sure. The Canadian side has proposed keeping the border closed for everyone except essential travel through summer. If that were to occur, then it would have a tremendous impact on the schedule that Allegiant would like to fly. The other issue is the flare-up of the COVID-19 in markets that Allegiant serves. So the California, Los Angeles market continues to be hard hit. Reports from Las Vegas casinos are that the recovery has been very slow. Many of the major resort casinos have not opened yet. They will be opening July 1, primarily the MGM and larger group of casinos on the Strip. So looking ahead, based on the optimism that Allegiant has, July's bookings are looking encouraging. If the COVID flare-ups don't intensify, if there isn't a second wave, the airline is looking at loads approaching 60%, which is about what the airline wants to fly in order to make a profit and enable social distancing. Airlines are all struggling in the absence of federal sanitation and distancing requirements governing civilian passenger aircraft. Surprisingly, we're into the 10th week of this, and there's been no federal standard to combat COVID. And they're all doing their own different types of initiatives. Allegiant Air has been extremely proactive in implementing rigorous airline cabin sanitizing. It's the only airline that issues a health kit to every passenger consisting of a mask, gloves, and disinfectant. It's also intentionally trying to limit loads to 70 to 80% of the aircraft. The airline has notably been ranked among U.S. carriers as the best airline in 2019. This is based on industry benchmarks, so they've come a long way in customer satisfaction. And another distinction is they flew 80% of all passengers that went through TSA checkpoints on Memorial Day. Having an airline like a partner like this in our community, is a testament to this long enduring partnership since 2004. The airline has contributed a great deal to the growth, recognition, and the recognition of this region as an originating market. We were one of the 5 stations that were established by the airline, and just my opinion that, we're working very closely with the airline. We talk to them every week, and they continue to build their schedule. Their August schedule actually has more frequencies to Las Vegas. It doesn't approach the 12 weekly that we typically do in summer. We're at 6 weekly right now to Las Vegas. That'll grow to about 10. So overall, it's really good to see Allegiant back. In terms of Alaska will continue to operate the single daily to SeaTac through July. The airline is deliberately restricting loads to about 50% of that 76-seat aircraft in order to enable some distancing. Both airlines accommodate passengers if the loads get above what they deem to be safe levels. We hope that the flare-ups are just that, the flare-ups that the destinations that these airlines serve will not be hard hit with a second wave, enabling us to have a gradual recovery. In terms of forecasting for the rest of the year, we always forecast for the worst and hope for the best. I think our forecast is at 85% of last year's market. So an extremely low volume, historically low for the airport, but one that is based on a realistic assumption of where we'll be by December and the close of the calendar year. With that, if you have any questions, Commissioner?
I do.
Great. Thank you very much, Sunil. Any questions, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I have none. Thanks, Sunil. Good report.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bell?
Yes, Sunil, I've got personal experience. We've got a meeting scheduled in Vancouver, and we're able to fly into Vancouver to hold the meeting, but we're not allowed to drive across the border. Is there an opportunity for us here to provide some transportation across the border?
We do have corporate and business aircraft that travel for essential business across the border on a daily basis. Our government clearance facility, the customs clearance facility, typically handles 3 to 4 jet arrivals. 2 of those typically are Alpha Technologies. They operate Boundary Bay Airport, and they cross the border essentially for business. But it's unlikely that we will be able to cross an international border for commercial purposes because there's a quarantine requirement. If you're traveling to Canada for anything other than an essential business, you have to remain quarantined for 14 days. And that's a hard and fast rule.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Sunil, could you just remind me how many destinations we're flying to right now on Allegiant?
We're flying to 7 with the new schedule, including scheduled for Anchorage in summers. Anchorage is a seasonal. Tucson has dropped off the list. Tucson didn't perform well. It's not a summer destination. It will not be coming back. We marketed Tucson as a winter destination, primarily for people that own second homes, the snowbirds that like to go back and forth between the warm climate and the cold climate. The airline is not able to accommodate the winter schedule right now.
Okay, so we're 7 now, we'll be at 8 in July.
Yes, with Anchorage. Well, Anchorage next week is going on the schedule now. The airline exercises a great deal of discretion in canceling flights if the loads just aren't there. Both airlines do. It's really up to them on whether they can then actually operate the flight or reaccommodate the passengers on a subsequent flight.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your update. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Our next update is Bellingham Cruise Terminal Steel Piling Support Repair Project, and I just lost my notes for who's presenting. Looks like Jennifer and Dave. Thank you. And Jennifer, you're muted if you're talking to us.
I was, thank you. Hi, I am Jennifer Allen from the engineering department. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the status of the BCT steel repair project. Since let me see. I think you can go to the next slide. There we go. Since the terminal was constructed, steel components have experienced varying levels of corrosion. In 2017, we did conduct a condition assessment, and several repairs were recommended in that assessment. As a result, the port contracted with Moffett & Nichols to design and permit these repairs in 2019. In October, Moffitt and Nickel conducted a pre-design study to evaluate the proposed repairs with regards to the necessity, the constructability, and the service life of the repair recommendations in that 2017 report. During that study, we found that the original budget was not sufficient to complete all the repairs at once. And although we are working to finalize the design and permits for all steel components, the construction will likely need to be in phases. The first phase of work is the building pier area. We have the bulkhead, which is about 350 linear feet of steel bulkhead. We have 157 steel piles, and then we have a number of pile caps. So both, and then the phase 2 components would be the floating dock, the dolphin pile, and then the timber and steel wing walls. So you can go to the next slide. So this first phase of work, as I previously described, includes the bulkhead, the pier piles, and the pile caps. The bulkhead and the pier piles will be protected with fiberglass jackets. The bulkhead does not have any remaining corrosion protection, and we've seen 10 to 20% loss as measured in the 2019 pre-design study. The 157 pier piles are generally in pretty good condition, but the coating has worn off from the splash zone, so we're going to start seeing corrosion pretty rapidly. The pile caps will be remetallized in the field, and they are also in pretty good condition, but the coatings are beginning to fail, so we do need to start recoating those now. We're waiting on permits for this project, and once we receive one final permit, we will formally bid the repairs for phase 1. We're hoping to do that in July. The second phase of work, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. The second phase of work is in design, but it is currently unfunded. We are also working on permits for this second phase. The phase 2 repairs will include jackets for the floating dock guide piles, the wing walls, and the dolphin piles. The dolphin piles are shown in that left photo, and the coating for both those dolphin piles and the and the wing walls are completely gone. That will be a combination of fiberglass jackets and remetallizing. And the jackets for the floating dock guide piles, those will be HDPE. Everything else will be fiberglass. Those are in moderate condition, but we do see significant loss where the guide collar is rubbing on those piles. So we have experienced some loss with those as well. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So this photo is not from the Bellingham Cruise Terminal. It's from the Bellingham Shipping Terminal, the fiberglass pile project that was recently completed. But this is what the typical fiberglass jacket looks like, and that's essentially how the under pier area will look at the BCT. So are there any questions?
All right. Thank you very much.
I have one.
Go ahead.
I have one.
Yeah.
Hello.
Please. I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. How far down does the fiberglass penetrate into the underlying surface? Does it go down in 6 to 8 feet, or how far does it go down?
So the fiberglass jackets typically range from -2 to +8 in the tidal areas, and there are some embedded piles close to the sheet pile wall, those will extend from about 2 feet below the mud line to the top of that pile cap.
Okay, so the standard is about 2 feet below the mud line is where the fiberglass stops
Yes,
on all the pilings we've done?
yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bell, any questions?
No, thank you.
Jennifer, how much life should we get out of these jackets?
The fiberglass jackets are 30 to 40 years. They're pretty expensive. The HDPE jackets that were initially recommended in the 2016-2017 condition assessment, those last 10 to 15 years, depending on the amount of debris that goes beneath the pier. But the fiberglass jackets last significantly longer.
Okay. And how about the remetallization?
The remetallization is about 20 years, but it's up out of the water, so it will likely last longer than 20 years.
Okay. So this will get us through a chunk of time.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your update. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Our third update is Blaine, sticking with a theme here. Bulkheads. This time, Blaine Bulkheads project update, and looks like we have Greg presenting.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg Nichols, Senior Project Engineer. Double checking when I'm unmuted. Whoever's controlling the screen, if you wouldn't mind if I could just share my own screen, if that would be okay. Thank you. This is a project update for the bulkhead repair project that's upcoming in the Blaine Marine Industrial Area. The scope of work for this project is a full replacement of the bulkhead beneath the Sawtooth Pier, as well as the bulkhead in front of the former T&M Protien site, as well as repair work at the current onboard marine bulkhead, as well as the bulkhead beneath the Boundary Fish Pier. To give a little refresher on the background as to how we got here, in 2017, Reid Middleton completed a condition assessment throughout the entire Blaine Marine Industrial Area of all the bulkheads and revetments on that site. The areas shown in red were identified by Reid Middleton as being in serious to critical condition. Some of these bulkheads will be addressed by environmental cleanup projects, one being the CK Fish environmental cleanup project that's being completed on the current. Sorry.
I didn't choose them.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
The current starfish leasehold. In addition, there are bulkheads on the Westman Marine environmental cleanup site that will be addressed as part of that cleanup project. In addition, in 2018, we completed some interim repairs at the Tulalip leasehold, as well as a small area on the Starfish leasehold. In 2019, we contracted with WSP to complete the design of the bulkhead replacement of the remaining critical bulkheads. As part of that design project, they completed an additional assessment of the bulkheads in front of the Boundary Fish site, as well as underneath their building, and the west side of the onboard marine site. And they determined that the bulkhead beneath the pier on the Boundary Fish site, as well as the pier, or as well as the west side of the onboard marine site, were actually in salvageable condition. And they determined that the bulkhead beneath the building at Boundary Fish still had a remaining life of 10 to 15 years. As such, we removed the bulkhead beneath the Boundary Fish site from the scope of work which led to the scope of work as I previously described. The work at the T&M Protien site and the Starfish site will be complete replacement with a new steel sheet pile wall bulkhead with a concrete pile cap. Construction of the pier, or construction of the bulkhead on the T&M, we'll get it right eventually, at the Starfish site will require partial demolition of the existing Sawtooth pier. And once we complete the installation of that bulkhead, we will reconstruct the portion of that pier that was removed. On the Boundary Fish site, it will be a repair work as there is remaining life in that bulkhead. The repair work will include replacement of one existing pile that has failed, and then routing between the lagging in the existing timber bulkhead to prevent material loss from migrating out between the lagging. In addition, the asphalt in the uplands adjacent to that bulkhead is in poor condition and is allowing water to infiltrate into the subgrade, which is also contributing to that erosion. And as such, we're going to replace a section of asphalt in the upland area to prevent that infiltration. Work at the onboard marine site will actually be quite limited. We will be doing some replacement of some failed bracing, but primarily we'll be doing some grouting of lagging between the lagging that will fill holes such as this one near the bottom that you can see that allows fines to migrate out from behind that bulkhead, resulting in sinkholes in the uplands. As I believe all the commissioners are aware, this project has been fairly heavily delayed by permitting issues, primarily issuance of the nationwide permit number 3, which required consultation with National Marine Fisheries as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We just recently received that permit within the past couple of weeks. We also have received the HPA, as well as flood hazard development permit, shoreline substantial development permit, and the SEPA exemption. The one permit that is outstanding is the building permit, which is a pretty straightforward permit that we don't anticipate causing any issues delaying the project, and we anticipate issuance of that in early July of 2020. One thing before we move on that I would like to comment on is that, as I mentioned, we only very recently received the permits, and as a result of the permitting delays as well as the coronavirus pandemic, scheduling of this project has been a little bit difficult, and we're pretty late in the game as a result. And so we're doing some things concurrently with finalizing design that we would normally do earlier on in the process, and one of those components is tenant outreach, which we're currently actively doing to ensure that we construct this project with minimal impact to the tenants. Project schedule, we anticipate advertising this project for bid in early July, with a bid opening at, near the end of July, and a notice to proceed in early August. There is in-water work on this project that has to be completed prior to February of 2021, and we anticipate completing the project by June of 2021. As I mentioned, one of our primary goals is to complete this project with minimal impact to the tenants, and so we've been actively working on tenant outreach and organizing the project schedule to ensure that the project can be completed with minimal impact. A few of the coordination items is that existing web house number 1, we're anticipating will be demolished prior to the start of this project. However, we do have a contingency plan in place in the event that there are any delays associated with demolition of that project, which we don't anticipate. Verizon is a subtenant of the Tulalip leasehold and is currently working on a construction project for a cell tower on that property. And that project needs to be completed prior to the start of our project to make way for the staging area on the T&M Protien lot that we're anticipating using. We recognize that Boundary Fish needs to have access during the commercial crabbing season, and as such, we're scheduling all work on that site to be completed in August and September prior to the start of the commercial crabbing season. And we're currently working to ensure that we maintain continuous access to the commercial fishing fleet throughout construction. We anticipate that impacts to the other tenants, including onboard marine, will be minimal aside from the obvious noise associated with pile driving. And just finally, to touch on some previous projects, which I've primarily already discussed, future projects include the CK Fish Environmental Cleanup Project, as well as the Western Marine Environmental Cleanup Project. And a project that's being coordinated with the City of Blaine is the project to improve the Marine Drive, which would include repair or replacement of that bulkhead. Are there any questions?
I have some. Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Hello. Okay, so the starfish bulkheads I see in the future, and they're pretty bad shape. Everybody knows that. How long into the future? Because that's part of those folks' business. That's quite a bit of ground there. What are you projecting for a timeline? I'm kind of shocked maybe that it's not even done in a little sooner. But can you tell me what we're doing there?
So I will probably have to lean a bit on Brian Gowan for this, but generally, I believe it is Aspect Consulting is working with WSP on the design. The replacement of that bulkhead is integral to the cleanup project, which is why it's been combined with the cleanup project. I believe that they are currently working with Ecology on the cleanup design for that project. And I would have to rely on Brian Gowan on the exact timeline as to when that would get replaced.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. We've advanced this one as fast as we possibly can. We've already met with the Department of Ecology, their senior team. We're working with the Attorney General's office on an agreed order right now to advance that. And we've got a concept to try to expedite the RIFS process because we're pretty comfortable with what we know would likely have to happen there, given our experience at the cleanup site that was just conducted right across the street. So, likely it would take a year or so to get through that process, just because there is time for public comment and review and all that. But we're accelerating that one as fast as we can to try to do it in conjunction with the engineering and design work, so we can get out of the gates as fast as possible. I don't have a solid timeline for you, but it is the highest priority for us on the cleanup sites up there in Blaine. So we've advanced that one as fast as we possibly can.
Well, that's good because those people haven't been in that building for a year now, really being able to operate. So it's impacting their business. And I would like to, I appreciate that you're expediting, Brian. And anything we can do as a commission to help move that along faster, I would like you to let us know, because that building floor falling in, I don't think a lot of people know the extent of the damage done there by the failure of the bulkhead, and that needed to get done. And when you have building floors falling in the water and things coming down, we need to get that fixed ASAP. Second question, John, the building permit, who's issuing that? The city of, I'm assuming the city of Blaine?
That's correct. It's the City of Blaine.
And do we have any issues there?
No, this is a straightforward project that it's really just checking a box.
Okay, very good. Third question, Verizon, are they on schedule or behind schedule, or do we know?
I would have to defer to Brady Scott on that one.
Yeah, hello. Let me start my video. Hi, Hi, Commissioner Briscoe.
Hello.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, thank you. Verizon had hoped to move forward this last winter and complete that project. They did run into some delays, not quite sure all the reasons for that. And then I think they ran into some further delays with the COVID. I've talked to them recently, and they're trying to gear up to get that moved forward. and we'll be talking to them more as to make sure they fully understand that this project will be right adjacent to their work, and we may need to move them off of that area sooner.
Right, because as a single commissioner speaking, I don't want their project holding up our project at all. That's a period. They don't hold us up.
Yes, that's
So,
understood.
thank you, Brady.
Yep.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Commissioner Bell?
No, I don't. Thanks, Bobby.
I don't have any either. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
All right, our fourth and final update, continuing with our theme of bulkheads and such, we're going to talk about Blaine Breakwater Recoating Project, and John is going to present for us.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is John Gibson, the project engineer on this project. Can you all hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
All right. I'm here to provide a quick update on the galvanizing repair project for the Blaine Harbor Breakwater. Please bear with me. This isn't advancing. There we go. This project is located adjacent to Jorgensen Pier at the southwest end of Blaine Harbor. This breakwater was constructed about 18 years ago. The breakwater is highlighted in blue in this image, which comes from the plans prepared by our consultant, Kenny and Associates. And I'll just click through a few photos to help illustrate the current condition of the structure. This next image comes from one of the inspection reports we commissioned for this facility. I apologize for the grainy resolution. The yellow line depicts the rate of corrosion relative to the location on the breakwater. This illustrates how the area in the red splash zone is typically subject to the highest rate of corrosion. Ultrasonic thickness readings of the steel bulkhead and the protected zinc layer have confirmed that this area has experienced the most corrosion. In other words, we're using some fancy tools to confirm what your eyes can tell you. The inspectors did not find evidence of widespread failure of the submerged galvanizing. As shown in this detail from the project plans, our contractor will focus on repairing the protected coating in the splash zone where the most corrosion has occurred. They will erect a debris containment system, clean off the rust and the marine growth, and apply a new protective coat of thermal sprayed zinc. The permits prohibit any removed material from being allowed to drop into the water. The plans also require the contractor to target some corroded areas outside of the splash zone, such as the reinforcing web and the batter piles shown here. The Commission has authorized a total of $675,000 for this project. We are currently putting the finishing touches on the bid document, and we aim to have the results by this time next month. As long as the contractor completes the project within the in-water work window, we can exercise some flexibility on when exactly they start the work. However, once they start the project, we are going to require them to complete it within a few months. So thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to address any questions the Commission may have.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Did you say they were spraying protective coating on again? It's a hot galvanizing. Is that what they're doing? Metallizing?
Yeah, it's called thermal sprayed zinc. So you're right. Metallizing is also a term for it.
So I'm assuming they're going to have to blast the area they're going to respray. Or can they...
Yeah, so in their preparation, they will have to blast it down to a certain level, and all of that is going to be monitored by a third-party coating inspector. to make sure that they've achieved the right level of cleanliness and basically etched the surface and prepared it to receive this new protective coat.
And then they're going to spot do some other places. Is that what I heard you say, John?
Yes, I think that's pretty limited. It's mostly in that reinforcing lead on a few of the batter piles. I don't know why, but in those areas, the corrosion has shown up a little bit higher. So above the 11 to 12 and a half foot elevation.
Well, my guess would be because they burned it off welding and the stuff they put it on with wasn't very good. But I think that's why. That's the hot area when you weld, they got to grind it and then it burns off to the side. When they recoat it, generally they just paint it with a brush. So that would be my guess. One question, does anybody know where we came up with the $675,000 number? Do we have an estimate from somebody? I mean,
I believe.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that that number actually came from Kenny and Associates in consultation with one of their contractor contacts. And if Greg, Nickel, or Jennifer Allen wants to confirm that, they're welcome to jump in here.
Yes, that's confirmed. Everything you said was correct. Tanea consulted with a contractor, and that estimate came back through that consultation. One of the big challenges is that access on that site is pretty difficult in places. The other thing that's challenging is capture of all that material that has to be removed, as well as all the protection that has to be put in place when the sprig out is applied.
Right, that's why it seems to me that I think everybody should be prepared for a fair higher cost than that. I don't know that in today's world that they can do that for that amount, but we'll see.
Is that a sandblast that you're going to do, or is that a high pressure water? What's the?
What they're capturing is probably going to have to be dry.
So if you're going to do a sandblast on that, that's just going to increase the volume that needs to be sent out, right? And how do you capture that? Just a question.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that the contractor will actually have to design with a structural engineer and submit for our approval. So this is more of a performance specification, and it's up to them to prove that they've got the right means and methods.
Bobby, do you have more?
No, that's all I have. I just looking at that, thinking it's going to be hard to capture stuff. It's going to be quite expensive, I think.
I've got a real quick question.
I mean, it can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying it's going to be a lot of hours and a lot of work to do that.
Agreed.
So mine is just a completely out of ignorance. So forgive me for being just stupid. But you don't have any corrosion below that splash zones. You know, basically where the barnacles are and above. Is that because the corrosion is caused by strictly friction from the splash of the water coming in and out? Is that why you're seeing that and not below?
From what I've read, it's due to two factors. One is the abundance of oxygen at that level, and then the second is the frequent wetting cycles. So like you're saying, it's just actively being splashed, and that's taking its toll day after day, year after year.
And there's a little more oxygen present in that water at that level?
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a moment.
No, I'm thinking out loud. Yeah. So I guess the next question is, if they get in there and they start to blast that off and they start to blast off some of those barnacles, is there a chance you're going to find more corrosion underneath that?
I'm pretty confident that the ultrasonic testing that was done gave us an accurate picture of how extensive the corrosion is in that splash zone. Fortunately, we've had them come back in 2016 and 2018 and track the rate of corrosion in those spots, and they've returned to the exact same spots. So I'm optimistic that we do have a handle on where the worst of the problems are. But you're right, Commissioner, that we don't know the exact state of everything underneath that marine growth.
How confident are you in that $675,000 number?
I'm afraid that I don't have the experience to really speculate on whether that's accurate. I would defer to Greg on that one.
Well, and I would say that during the current situation, bidding uncertainty is pretty enormous. We see some projects where I think we got 10 bids on a project to demolish a building, and other projects we're not getting any attention at all. So it seems to vary. And that same bid, we had an enormous spread on the cost. So I would say that we're looking at a lot of uncertainty with regard to bid prices right now.
That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any further questions myself. That looks like all the questions taken care of for those presentations. Thank you very much.
I might have one more. One more, Commissioner Shepard.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we could back up to the previous one where the Sawtooth was involved there in Blaine, and get back to this president. When we scroll down to the Sawtooth and former T&M, we get down to the bulkhead replacement on the Sawtooth part. I did have a question, Greg, that I forgot to ask. It says we're moving the Sawtooth bulkhead waterward. So we're going out further into the harbor. I'm assuming that's correct, from the existing bulkhead. Well, I have a question on that. Why aren't we building behind the old bulkhead? Because as we go further towards the harbor, it's going to push things out. Well, maybe won't make a difference, but we're going to lose water or depth.
So it shouldn't affect water depth out at the usable portions of the Sawtooth. The reason that's being constructed waterward is constructability issues, because that portion of the bulkhead is reinforced with timber tiebacks, and if we drive sheet piles behind, we have to compromise those tiebacks, which means that we have a fairly significant investment to shore up that bulkhead while we do that work. And so it was entirely a cost savings issue. This is a design that's been in place for quite some time. It's the same design that we shared during the last Blaine update, but it's entirely a cost issue that's being constructed the way it is, and it shouldn't affect the way that the Sawtooth pier is being used.
Are we going to use those same tiebacks? Is that part of the thought process there?
No. So those will go away at some point in time. Once we construct the new bulkhead, we'll demolish the existing from behind, and the new bulkhead will be supported by batter piles, which is a slightly different way of reinforcing a bulkhead.
All right, they're going to come from the front side and push back?
They're actually going to anchor it from the back side.
They will be anchored from the back side?
Correct.
So when we're going to drive sheet, you call it sheet pile, what's that made of?
Steel.
Why are we using steel with so much composite available?
So we've actually looked into the composite, and composite is not at a point where it can provide the strength for a commercial application or an application with this much exposed bulkhead. It's just not there. Composite is typically used for residential bulkheads at this point in time. And really the steel is the only material that's available that can provide us with the strength that we need.
Well, I find that rather interesting because I believe it was 2 winters ago, or fall, I think spring, winter, Westport drove composite sheet pile around their entire harbor. And they are nothing basically but commercial. So I have an issue with driving steel that we know deteriorates versus a composite we know doesn't deteriorate. And I'm curious as to who's telling us it's no good for commercial use. Because Port of Grays Harbor has used a lot of it.
I'm more than happy to reach out to Grace Harbor and look at the design. I did, because this did come up during a previous conversation, and I did consult with WSP, who is our consultant, has been our consultant on a number of projects, including the Harris Avenue Shipyard pier replacement project. And their comment was that it just wasn't an appropriate product for this application. But I'm more than happy to revisit that and talk with both WSP as well as the Port of Grays Harbor to completely run that to ground again.
And the reason I say that, Greg, is not just to argue about it, but in the Port of Westport, it has continuous ocean swell action within the harbor. And when there's a storm going on, it's, the surge that's in there is pretty intense. And I've looked at that sheet pile because I knew we needed to do some stuff up here. I've walked and looked at it over the period that I've been fishing down there in the winter times during those storms, and it doesn't flex. It's not moving. I don't see anything happening to it. That's why I find it interesting when a company is telling us it won't work in Blaine, where you have no storm surge other than when you get a west-northwest once in a while, and that's mostly with our outer steel piling that we just looked at. So I would really ask that we look into composite deeply, because in the long term, which is what we're trying to build for, as we heard from Jennifer, I believe it was Jennifer, that the composite or fiberglass, which is pretty much kind of the same thing, its lifespan is 2 to 3 times more. So the maintenance cost is going to outweigh the cost of putting it in. So please look into it aggressively.
Will do.
That's all I have, Commissioner Shepard. Thank you.
All right. Well, we are on to other business. We do have I guess I should back up for a moment. Rob, you have a public comment at 5:30 in addition to our 4 p.m. Public comment. And so I will have us do other business now and then do a second call for public comment after.
Fair enough, Commissioner. I've got 2. Can everyone hear me?
Barely.
Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
So I've got 2 items for other business. One of them is moving the July 21st meeting to the 14th. And the purpose, we set that July 21st meeting to accommodate summer schedules, but we did not know that the last 2-3 months worth of meetings were going to be problematic and be meeting like this. So if we could, thank you for that. So if we could move that meeting to the 14th, I think we're going to have, as we pick up speed here at the port, I think we're going to need another meeting for some approvals prior to the 21st. So as long as someone doesn't have any schedule conflicts, I'm proposing we move the July 21st meeting to July 14th.
Okay, so that would continue having 1 meeting in the month of July, 1 meeting in the month of August, and switching from the 21st to the 14th.
And one of the reasons I'm switching as well is if we do need a second meeting, then we can kind of space them out a little better by having it either early August or late July.
Okay. Any conflict, commissioners?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, I think the original request was for me to move it to that 21st date. I was originally going to be out of town, but all those grand out of town plans are no longer happening, so I will be here and available.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll go ahead and move that meeting. My second item is regarding interest and penalties. You'll recall that you waived for April, May, and June all interest and penalties. And so I'm going to ask for a motion to do similar for July.
let me back up there. Did we need a motion for that meeting change and a vote?
I don't think you need a vote for that, no. If you wanted to cover your bases, you can make a quick motion and take a vote on it.
I make a motion, we move the July meeting to the 14th from the 21st to accommodate Director Fix's request.
Okay, I'll provide a second for that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Then I'll make a motion to waive all interest and penalties for the period of July for our port tenants. This continues the action we put in place to help earlier.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Carries as well. Okay. Thank you, Director Fix. Any other items for us?
No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Briscoe, any other business?
Yeah, I have one thing. We're always recognizing our businesses when they do well, our marine trade businesses especially. We've spoken numerous times about All-American Marine. We've spoken about ITEC, things. And we have a boat building facility over in the Fairhaven Industrial Marine Park that staff met with the folks a year and a half ago, I think now. I'm sure they can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was about a year and a half ago. NTG Fabrication, Nigel Groom and his wife Erica. Since NTG Fabrication has been open in their new location in our Fairhaven Marine Industrial Park, they've built a 34-foot sport boat, 6 32-foot Bristol Bay boats for Alioto Enterprises, and done countless repairs and modification on other vessels. This year, during the coronavirus pandemic, their crew of 21 was reduced to 11. NTG worked around the clock to get 4 Alioto Enterprise boats out the door and delivered to Bristol Bay in time for the 2020 season. NTG has 2 new Alioto Enterprise gillnet boats starting next month, and 2 26-foot boom boats for British Petroleum, BP, at Cherry Point in construction right now. Their new shop has made it possible for Nigel and Erica to expand NTG Fabrication to everything they knew it could be. They thank everyone who helped make their dreams come true and look forward to all the projects, big and small, to come. Kudos to the port staff for moving that lease forward. It was a good move. Kudos to the commission for making it happen. That's all I got.
Thank you for that. I'll second that. Really great operation. It's quite exciting to see what's happening down there. Far better use of that building than what was in there as storage before, and it's exciting to see all the work that's going on. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Commissioner Bell, do you have any other business items?
Mine is just a admiration for the amount of work that the staff is doing, even through this pandemic. I've been on so many calls with the people of the staff, and it's just an inspiration to have people who aren't resting on their laurels, but we're working really hard. I mean, I don't know, it took a Herculean effort just to get Goldberg a haircut. And I just want to say thank you, though, to everybody else for being engaged as you are in all of the phone calls and all the projects that we have. It's really been inspirational. Nothing has slowed down. Nothing has come to a complete stop except the airport. But to Rob and the rest, it's been an inspiration. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
I'll second that.
Yes. Okay. My only one is for Mr. Goldberg or Gina Stark, if she is available, to update us on some of the economic recovery and how we're planning to use some of that CARES Act funding. Last time we talked about the working with the county to utilize those CARES Act resources And one of the areas of interest was taking those applicants for the grant program through the Washington State Department of Commerce and trying to look back to all of those quality but ultimately unsuccessful applicants and see if we're able to help those individual businesses with some of those resources. Don, can you give us a little bit of an update where we're going with that?
Sure. Don Goldberg, Director of Economic Development with a new haircut. Appreciate being here tonight. There's a lot going on actually right now. We've been trying to accelerate this, and you're correct. Gina's on the team as well. It's going to the County Council tonight for a vote. It's been quite successful. The region is expected to get $16 million. That's about $12 million from the county and approximately $4 million from the other cities. And everybody has worked jointly to pool all of those funds and then hold back a few of the funds for the individual cities' needs. What our department will have approximately $3 million to distribute through the program that you're talking about, Mr. Shepard, on a grant program that will be the basis right now without it going to vote quite yet will be up to $15,000 grants. So that's $5,000 more than the state grant limit. The state grant limit was up to 10 employees. I believe ours is up to 20 or 25 employees. So we're expanding the money as well as the number of employee or size of business. We expect that what we'll do is use an application very similar to the commerce application, but tightened up and more specific for our region. That application and process should be done next week. And then we'll be reaching out to the approximate 600 entities that did not get a grant, as well as advertising through all our partners, both public and private, to let everybody know the program aspects and deadlines and that it's available. We're not going to just go straight back to the commerce applications only because there are new needs since then and some of the circumstances have changed. I believe it was Commissioner Bell who was interested and wanted to make sure that we weren't going to grant money to businesses that were already failing and that we're not going to use this money to continue their operations. So there's questions like that we have to get through. We don't want to make it too complex because we know the money needs to get out there as soon as possible. So there's an aspect for that, and then there's another area that's separate that will be for broadband, for computers, hotspots, and trying to just plug the holes for education throughout the county for students that are unable to, and businesses, but mostly students that are unable to connect for learning as they go through COVID-19.
So for the expanding and using those $3 million for additional grant resources, we have to have this money spent by October. So you're looking for something that should be out and available within the next month or two, I would expect. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, exactly. So we have through the end of October 31st. But our goal is to get the money out much sooner than that. So it'll be another big rush on our department. We'll be reaching out to the county. We've talked to them as well for support. You know, we're expecting that there could be as many as 200 or 300 grants instead of the last round was 37 grants. We've already worked with our in-house attorney, that legal counsel, to get the wording correct for the grant application as well as the agreements. We're also looking at potentially adding a line that basically says that if you agree to take these funds, that you will also agree to abide by the governor's four-phase regulations and the county health department's recommendations on safe businesses. So we want to connect that you're taking public money, and you're also going to be mindful of being a successful business and a safe business.
On that, two notes on that one. First of all, I want to also make it clear, it's not just that I didn't want to see money going to a failing operation. I also want to make sure we're not giving money to people who don't need it. Really, it's a survival fund, right, for people who need a little bit just to get along. And on the second note, are we doing anything to help create a certification program for businesses who are complying, who do have a protocol in place, so that customers can feel comfortable going into that establishment, knowing that they have some seal of approval, that they've met the certain standards? Is there anything that we can provide for that to give? Really what I think that is about is giving the customer the comfort level that they can go in and know that the vendor has taken the highest level of precaution. Is that in the works?
I'm glad you brought that up. So in many areas, and it's a natural thing right now, business is being pitted against health. But the health department and our department are working very closely to combine those two as one. And we're currently working with a marketing company. I'm meeting with the health department at least twice a week to do exactly what you suggested, Commissioner Bell. We're coming out with a whole campaign, tagline, things to go in the windows, suggestions, places where they can get PPE. And what we want to do is market it that a safe business is a sustainable business. So not isolating just the health reasons, but if customers know that you have a clean, safe environment, they're more apt to come there, which will make your business more successful as well. So they work hand in hand. So that is going on right now, and we're hoping to have it completed in the next couple of weeks.
Very nice, thank you.
And great, well, thank you. And Don, I just had another question about the dispersal of those grant funds. Are we going to, the state, I thought, had a really nice both geographic spread on how they distributed the money throughout the county, but they also paid attention to distributing the money to women-owned businesses, tribally owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, to ensure that diversity of opportunity for those resources. Are you guys planning to do something similar?
We're actually going a little deeper than the State Commerce did, because we gave them applications, but they had the choice to of which ones would move forward. So we're going to make sure that all the regions have at least their percentage of applications granted to a wide area throughout Whatcom County. And we're also looking at the types of businesses, equity, all of those aspects.
Great. Well, thank you. And the last request would just be to keep that process as streamlined as possible for those businesses that have already applied for this to be reapplied. I know these businesses have applied for a whole slew of programs, and just keep in mind making that as seamless as possible for those ones that have already put in the effort to apply for the first time.
We're going to try to make it as simple as possible. And to give you an idea of the proposed timing, grant application will be posted June 26th, deadline July 10th, notified the recipient July 24th, and contracts issued the first week of August. So really quite quick, which means my staff and county and other supporting agencies are going to have a lot of work with what we expect to be hundreds and hundreds of applications.
Wonderful. Well, that's going to really make a huge difference for a lot of individuals in this county. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So for clarification purposes, Don, when you're ranking these businesses and you have a business that needs help and they are legitimate and they would pass all the hoops, would they be passed over because they're not owned by a female or a minority? Is that what I heard?
No, not at all. There's a ranking system that's being created. So some of them are number of employees, what they're doing, how they affect other businesses in a positive or negative way. The size of the business, the types of businesses, as well as whether it's a minority-owned business or whether it's something of that nature. So it all adds up to ranking. And then, to be honest with you, Commissioner, there is a percentage there that isn't written. Some of this has to be done through people discussing the application and making a decision.
Okay. That was clarification. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Seems like that's all of our other business. I'll make a call for public comment then.
I would ask first, Michael, you have, and I notice you're on the screen, you have sent us some private chats. I do wish that you would make those public so that people other than the people in this video can hear your comments. So would you do me a favor and either read what you have written or speak from your heart on this? Thanks.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ken. I did type in to everyone, so I suppose everyone can see them, but I'd be happy to read those. Thank you very much. I would like to briefly say I've been sitting through this entire meeting, and I have only been through a few Port Commission meetings, and I'm not sucking up to you guys, but honestly saying I'm impressed with how you three commissioners are looking after the public interest and asking probing questions. I was surprised with the depth of the questions about specifics of materials and methods in Blaine Harbor and in Fairhaven. And it's also impressed with Don Goldberg just now with his trying to make sure that local businesses don't fail, and also Commissioner Shepard and Mr. Goldberg's concern to provide more equity in the business community for women-owned and minority-owned businesses in this really trying economic time. So thank you all for that. Now, I'll quickly read my chats if I haven't used up my time already. First one.
Could I interrupt for a moment? I didn't catch who this was.
My name is Michael.
Who is this?
My name is Michael Chiverio. I'm a resident of Fairhaven for 52 years, and in my retirement, I involve myself in the local political issues more than I used to have, and my primary focus in my activism is in the area of affordable housing.
Okay, very good. This was Commissioner Briscoe asking. Thank you. I didn't catch your name in the beginning there. And I'm not up on Zoom, so I could not see your comments on screen, so I appreciate you giving it to us.
Okay. All right. I'll read those now. First one. I spoke with an employee of Trident Seafoods on Sunday. I was down at the waterfront in Bellingham on the new road at the corner of Laurel and Granary, thank you. Anyway, he's living in his car because his wage doesn't allow him to afford rent in Bellingham. Being a public agency with property yet to be developed, it's my view that the priority of POB needs to be focused on its mission of sustainable economic development. Affordable housing, in my view, is economic development. It allows workers to have expendable income that can be spent on local business. But new condos being built do not meet the port's mission in terms of sustainability, and certainly do not meet the needs of the 50% of citizens who are currently cost burdened by rent and mortgage payments. That's my first chat post, and I left out the word not after 50% of the citizens who are anyway. My second post is informational posters and leaflets that were attached to the plywood construction barrier along Granary Avenue have been removed. These barriers are in a public right-of-way. I'd like to know if Port of Bellingham removed these posters and leaflets, and if so, why? These posters are an exercise of free speech related to a public agency. They are not destructive vandalism. A better response by Port of Bellingham to such posting might be to post posters of response to the concerns raised by these posters. Removing the posters implies suppression of opinion that runs counter to current practice of Port of Bellingham and is not in keeping with the spirit of open public dialogue.
Commissioners, this is Rob. We did not remove the posters from the wall on Granary Avenue.
It was hard to hear the background, but I couldn't hear him.
Yeah, it was a little hard to hear that. If you could please repeat.
Come over to Ken's computer here because you can hear Ken. Yeah, we did not remove. We did not remove any of the posters on that wall. That's not our property nor our wall, so we wouldn't have removed those posters.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know who would have done it. Maybe the contractor. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments, Michael. And, you know, I think in my response is in looking at the waterfront development, we're really striving for a diversity of development that will happen. And while the initial project of those condos is not intended as a workforce housing project, there are some that are coming up. And I know you're familiar with the Millworks project. I want to call that out as an exciting example of meeting some of the job creation needs in our community while also providing workforce housing on that property. And I do hope that as Harcourt, which is the master developer, has rights to most of the buildable land for development purposes, as they are thinking about what projects come next for them, that they will recognize the community needs around mixed income affordable housing at that site. We want, certainly myself as one commissioner wants a lot of things from that waterfront development, both public access, job creation, and also places that a variety of people can afford to live. So I appreciate your comments, and do feel free to reach out to us anytime.
I also want to point out that we also have a project in Fairhaven with a bunch of work studios that is certainly going to be affordable housing and a job creation. And we're looking very hard at where we can put this, but we can't make the entire waterfront affordable housing. We are doing our part to make it as diverse as possible, and there does need to be this element. I understand, Michael, that particular project is a thorn in your side. But I will also say that the development agreement that was done with Harcourt was done prior to this commission. And quite frankly, we're trying to work within the bounds of that to the best of our ability. And this commission is very, very adamant about making sure that we put the right things in the right places. But at some level, we are bound by a previous agreement, which goes back well beyond our years. But our hearts are in the right place. I mean, clearly, we're working with the mission to make sure that they get what they need in the way of resources. I know Don and the rest of the economic development group have been actively working to make sure that we have plenty of room for a drop-in center, for a additional expansion of the homeless shelter, and resources throughout the county. So it's not like we're not players in this game. It just doesn't fit where you would like it to fit. is kind of my take on that, and I apologize for being blunt on that, but that needs to be what it is at this juncture. That's all I've got.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the comment, and please come back and visit us again soon. Any other comments here? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.